Welcome back to the Peter Pan Lore YouTube channel, and today we are doing the third episode of 120 years of Peter Pan costumes. Last time we talked about the red leafy tunics worn by Jean Forbes Robertson and people like this, and today we're talking about Maude Adams and the greener, leafier Peter Pans that came afterwards. Let's take a look then at Maude Adams. This is how Maude described first reading the play of Peter Pan. I read the play after going home and was so completely won over by the character of Dear Peter and so thoroughly invested and thrilled by his numerous adventures that I fell in love with him at once. In the evening when I spoke to Mr. Frohman at the theatre, I said, "The Shakespearean plays and the old comedy that we spoke of are all right, but I would like to act Peter Pan." While I read Peter Pan, it seemed that nothing I had ever read before, nothing I had ever imagined, and no play in which I had ever appeared had appealed to me so strongly or inspired me with such full and direct happiness. Every line of it thrilled me, and as I passed from scene to scene, an affection for Peter grew and took hold of me until I was perfectly wrapped in a spell of desire to be Peter Pan himself. Can relate. There are a couple of cool pieces of costume detail I would like to talk about at this point. The first one is that we have some very cool pictures of Maude Adams wearing Peter Pan's winter hunting costume. This I really love, and I'll put on the screen for you right now. I love this design. At some point, I'd quite like to replicate it. It's a bit warm for right now, so I might save it for a winter cosplay. I love all the little details, and how Peter isn't always just wearing one thing. I also love how it looks like it came from the Neverland itself. It almost looks like a mishmash of things he might have borrowed from Tiger Lily and her people. Something from the fairies, something from the gnomes who are tailors, things like this. It all looks like a sumptuous concoction created from the Neverland. So I really love that. The second thing I want to talk about is specifically about Maude Adams and this Peter Pan costume. And this information makes me incredibly happy. So looking at all these pictures of Maude Adams in her Peter Pan outfit, it might excite you to know, because it really excited me when I found out. Maude Adams actually designed this Peter costume. She designed the whole thing herself, including the hat. Now, I don't know if she's a tailor or a sewer, I don't know if she actually stitched the thing herself, but being a part of the design process, especially as the person who's going to be performing in it, that is something that is very important to me. Again, very relatable content coming from Maude today. I absolutely can understand the desire to be heavily involved in what you are going to be wearing. As a performer and a cosplayer myself, when I've made the costume, or at least helped to make the thing that I am wearing, it really makes you feel like you understand the character so much better. So I adore this little Peter Pan fact, and I hope you guys do too. Unfortunately, we don't have any recordings of Maude playing Peter Pan, but I feel like, especially with that piece of information, it would have been fascinating to watch. Extra little fun nugget of information then, Maude Adams is responsible for the Peter Pan collar. This is a style of shirt or dress. It's a sort of round, large, scooped collar, and I'll show you some pictures of it on the screen right now. This is a real thing, and sometimes when I'm searching for Peter Pan items on the internet, I will get Peter Pan collared fashion items that come up and I have to scroll through them. So Maude Adams is responsible for that collar happening, and also for my having to scroll extra far when I search for things. So 50-50 the fact that I love and hate this Maude. There are a couple of things that make me a little bit sad about Maude's performances as Peter Pan. Number one is that apparently she would stray from the script, should we say, and everyone else sort of had to follow along. Now, I can't blame this too much because I have done it as well. When you know a character very, very well and you just feel like in the moment you want to say something slightly different, I can completely understand that. However, when you're surrounded by a group of other actors who have rehearsed the script, I can imagine it being a little bit frustrating. And for the writer, J.M. Barrie, and the producers as well. The other thing that made me a little sad to read about was that in Maude's run as Peter Pan, because Maude had a very good singing voice, they inserted songs for Peter to sing so that she could show it off. This is great, of course, but it does mean that they took out the songs that Wendy Darling sings, and these were quite important parts of her character, and it stripped back the things that she was able to do in the show. So with all that in mind, the Peter gets to sing and not Wendy, and the improvisation and not always sticking to the script, I do feel a little bit sad for the other actors who had to take a part in this show. However, again, I'm still sure it was absolutely fabulous. We'll finish this section with a fun Peter Pan fact about Maude Adams, and that is that she played the role of Peter Pan for 31 weeks, or 237 shows, before it closed in 1906, and then she went on tour. And now we've set the scene, let's talk about my favourite bit, the costume itself. As the keen-eyed amongst you may have noticed, I have once again recreated a Peter Pan costume. This time it's the Maude Adams one. Here it is. This is my version of the Maude Adams Peter Pan. It's not exactly the same. It is, as ever, a take on it, a version of it, inspired by the shape and the silhouette. Look at this choppy skirt. I'm loving it. The two belt idea I really love as well, and these massive sleeves. I cannot explain to you how massive these sleeves are. In fact, you know what? I think I'm just gonna put it on and show you. I enjoy the fact that I'm getting into Peter Pan cosplay right now and I just look like I'm going to work. Just wait, the magic will happen, give it a minute. Perspective shift. Alright, here we go. So this is my take on the Maude Adams Peter Pan costume. As you can see, we've got the collar. I do not own anything which has a Peter Pan collar, so I am not wearing that. I did not have time to make a Peter Pan collared shirt, mostly because in the nicest possible way, I will never ever wear it again. I really don't like those collars very much, so that was not happening. But the tunic is the bit that we're mainly focusing on. So we've got the big floofy sleeves, we've got the two belts, which I'm absolutely loving, and we've got the choppy edge of the tunic, which goes all the way around the back. And we've got the sort of leaf pattern. These would often be cascading down the shoulders as well, sort of painted or sewn on, that kind of thing. And it is different shades of bluey, greeny colours. I am particularly a fan of this type of sleeve. It gives you a lot of movement. As an actor, you can bounce around, particularly when you're in the harness and you're playing Peter, you're going up in the air, you're flying, you're bouncing around. I love the movement that this costume has. The other one had movement as well, of course. This one definitely. Maude was thinking about the arms, I think, when this costume was designed, and I am absolutely loving it. Peter definitely expresses himself and does all these big sweeping things, so absolutely loving this. And it also, particularly the way I've cut mine, it's giving me flashbacks to the Peter Pan costumes from the red Peter costume video we did last time. So think about the Jean Forbes Robertson. I know I go on about her a lot. I'm sorry, she's one of my favourites. But think about the old costumes which had the cobwebby sleeves. So think about that, and then think about the choppy nature of this. I like how there's always this element of bird about Peter, and it harkens back to The Little White Bird, which of course Maude will have read. So I love the idea that we're drawing on the bird of Peter, the bird that he is partly. I really enjoy this. So this is my take on the costume. I might be wearing it for the rest of the video. Let's find out. Okay, yeah, seriously, I'm loving these sleeves too much. I'm not taking this thing off. Whoop, 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 whoop. I'm flying. So this is green and leafy. Now at this point, when Maude Adams was playing the role of Peter, the novel had not yet come out. This is 1906, 1905 we're talking about. The novel did not emerge until 1911. And in the novel, the description of Peter's outfit is a little different to in the play. As you might remember from my other video, in the play, Peter is described like this. Insofar as he is dressed at all, it is in autumn leaves and cobwebs. Now that is how Peter is described in the play, but let me tell you about the novel for a second. This bit of the novel comes from the very end of chapter 1, and it says, "He was a lovely boy clad in skeleton leaves and the juices that ooze out of trees." So in the novel, he is not specifically described as wearing autumn leaves, and I feel like this leaves more open to interpretation. Of course, autumn leaves can be pretty much anything you want as well, but it does paint the vibe of a autumnal red Peter Pan, whereas when the novel has come out, by this time we've seen a lot of different costumes from a lot of different stage productions. So I kind of feel like J.M. Barrie was leaving even more open to interpretation, where a lot of Peter is open to interpretation already. We have no idea what he looks like, so I kind of enjoy that. While the autumn leaves are always going to hold a very special place in my heart, I love the idea of skeleton leaves and the juices that ooze out of trees. And when I made my very own design for a Peter Pan costume, I used this a lot. In fact, I used hot glue in various different colours to create the juices that ooze out of trees on my costume as well. But why bring up the novel when at this point it's still 5 years in the future? Well, it's because, as I said, I love the fact that Peter's description is never actually really gone into. We don't know what he looks like. And in terms of what he wears, we only get described leaves, juices from trees, sometimes autumnal, sometimes skeleton leaves. But I love the fact that Peter's design can and does change. In fact, that's the whole point of this series, 120 years of Peter Pan costumes. I wouldn't be doing it if he looked the same the whole time, and I love that there are all these differences. And while I will have preferences, there are some costumes I like a lot, some costumes I like a little, and some costumes I really just think miss the mark. I do still love the fact that they all go their own different ways and have their own different interpretations, because they are all, or most of them, are drawing on that little bit of information we have. Leaves, juices that ooze out of trees, the naturalness. Peter has come from this other world, and he definitely looks like it. And I definitely think that Maude got this. You heard the quote I read about her engaging with the character of Peter Pan when she first read the story. To be honest, reading that quote, I felt exactly the same. I felt a real kinship with Maude at that point because I felt the same way when reading, particularly the play of Peter, with the stage directions, with everything about him, the sumptuous descriptions we get in the novel, but particularly in the play. I am a theatre kid, I've said many times before, the play is always my favourite. And when you really connect to a character like that, not because I related to him particularly, but because I enjoyed it so much, and you want to play this character, you want to embody all of the things about them and show it to other people, I definitely understand that. And so every costume decision that was made by Maude Adams, I feel represents Peter, and I can 100% see where they all came from. And now, to quote Wendy Darling, we're going to take a peep into the future, and we're going to have a look at the other greener, leafier Peter Pans that came after Maude Adams. So, starting us off, we have Vivian Martin. Any relation to Mary Martin? I'm going to go look that up later. We also have Betty Bronson, but I'm going to talk more about her and the Peters around her era in next month's video. So moving on for now, we have Eva Le Gallienne. We also have Mary Martin, who a lot of you might know as a Peter Pan. And I'll be coming back to Mary Martin in July. That's the month I'm going to be talking about the musicals in particular. So hold on to your hats for that one. We also have Mia Farrow, Bonnie Langford, Beatrice Lilly. I tentatively include the Disney animated 1950s Peter Pan. He was, after all, green. But at this point, I would like to draw your attention to something else about Disney. Now, I am not going to be talking about the Disneyland Park Peter Pans because that will take me way too long to include with all of these other videos. However, I would like to point you to another video, which I'll link somewhere at the top, here on YouTube, which does talk you through the entire history of Disney Park Peter Pan costumes. I watched it, it's fantastic, so go give this creator some love. I will link it up here and in the description down below. We also, of course, have a very green and leafy Peter in the 2003 film Peter Pan, as played by Jeremy Sumpter. I'll be talking more about that particular costume in the August video, which is going to be about the very unique Peter Pan costumes that we've seen over the years. That one in particular is, of course, very different to the Maude Adams style of green leafy Peter Pan, but it is still green and leafy, so I'm going to link it back to Maude Adams nonetheless. Woodley wooing back to Disney once again, we have the 2023 Disney live-action remake of Peter Pan and Wendy. This costume was very green and quite leafy. You couldn't always see it because the saturation in that movie was interesting, but it was nonetheless green and leafy, so I'm going to include it in this list as well. Other more modern Peters who are green and leafy include the Finding Neverland musical version of Peter Pan. We also, of course, have many different versions of green leafy Peter Pan costumes, as worn by my favourite Peter Pan of all time, all hail Cathy Rigby. Cathy Rigby will of course be taking pride of place in the July episode featuring the musical versions of Peter Pan costumes. So her and Mary Martin are both in that one, along with a few others, so stick around for the July one to watch all that. Coming up to very current day, we also just had Peter Pan at the London Palladium. I went to see it. It was hilarious, but more on this one in the very last video of the year, where I talk about the very current productions of Peter Pan, including the one in America that's touring right now. This is where I'm going to end the green leafy saga of Peter Pan costumes. There have been so many actors over the years who have worn green leafy Peter Pan costumes. I didn't include them all in this list, I included a lot of the earlier ones and some of my more modern favourites. If I've missed any of your favourites, let me know who they are down in the comments below. But if they're a more modern Peter, they will probably be appearing in a later video later on this year. So we're going to be waving a fond goodbye to Maude Adams and everything she brought to the role of Peter and the costuming as well. And we're going to be looking forwards in time at Betty Bronson and the silent movie version of Peter Pan. I'll also dive into a few of the other actors and the different costumes worn around that time, and then we're moving on to June. June is going to be the month of animated Peter Pans. We're starting out with the 1950s Disney cartoon, we're moving ahead to look at Fox's Peter Pan and the Pirates, and mentioning various other animated Peter Pans as well. If you've got any favourites you want to make sure I include, let me know in the comments down below. And if there's anything else you'd like to know about the lore, the history of Peter Pan, chuck your questions down here in the comments on YouTube, or head on over to the Peter Pan Lore and Facts TikTok page and go and ask me on there. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope you stay hydrated, don't forget to love yourselves, and I will see you at the end of next month for another 120 years of Peter Pan costumes, and a couple of times in between then when I'll bring you some more lore and fact videos as well. And I am going to finish reading the story of Peter Pan. We've only got 5 chapters left to go. I promise to film that as soon as I have the time. As always, thank you so much for watching and engaging with this content. I adore each and every single one of you. Goodbye. I'm flying.